Hello, can you please give me your name and explain what Woodford arrangements you invested into? Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Martin Farrimond, and I invested mainly in the Woodford Equity Income Fund. I did have small investments in I think it was called the Patient Capital Trust, but the main investment, by far and away, was the Woodford Equity Income Fund.
Thank you, Martin. And why is it that you've agreed to actually have this conversation with me, bearing in mind it's being recorded and it's going to be put out on social media and so on? But why are you happy for that?
Two reasons. Firstly, I'm obviously concerned that we're not getting proper redress for the losses we suffered because of the mismanagement and the recommendations that were made about Woodford Equity Income. So that's number one. Is a personal. I would like to obviously try and recover as much of my losses as I can from the processes available to me. The second one obviously is a concern with regulatory failure that seems to be occurring in UK financial services, and the need for that to be addressed. Is the UK traditionally had a reputation for being a well-regulated market, and that clearly has, in the case of Woodford, and probably in other cases, has broken and has not worked and is not working properly.
Thanks, Martin. That's very clear. Who is your MP, and would you be happy for us to email a link to the recording of this conversation to him or her?
Absolutely. The MP is Sir Brandon Lewis.
Okay, thank you. Why did you invest in Woodford? What was it about Woodford that attracted you?
The main reasons I followed Woodford from Invesco Perpetual, so I had invested with his funds from the equity income and the high income funds at Invesco Perpetual. So I knew he was at that stage a well-considered and a respected fund manager that had had a good track record at investing in Invesco Perpetual and had had a good experience with those funds. So I naturally kind of followed, especially on, with the likes of Hargreaves Lansdown recommending that investors follow him, kind of followed him when he started his own fund management company, and naturally felt that the equity income fund would be kind of managed in a very similar way, and hopefully would have kind of similar performance to that he'd attained at Invesco Perpetual.
Thank you. Did you use an investment platform, and if so, which one?
Yeah, Hargreaves Lansdown. So I've used Hargreaves Lansdown for probably coming up to 30 years now. So I'm a long-standing customer of theirs.
When you invested, did you have an understanding of what the statutory protections were in terms of the Financial Ombudsman Service or the Financial Services Compensation Scheme? And if so, what was your understanding?
Look, I mean, my understanding has always been, as an investor in the UK market, that you have the regulatory structure that we have to help protect when things go wrong. I no expectation that system obviously compensates for poor investment return. Of course, that's not what it's there for. But I invest and have confidence, or did have confidence anyway, that where things go wrong and things are not, and people don't do their jobs and carry out their roles properly, there's a system in place that will help compensate investors for that. And obviously the experience with Woodford has shaken confidence in that somewhat.
Understood. Thank you. In terms of the scheme of arrangement, if it were to be approved, what's your understanding of how many pence in the pound you'd get through the scheme of arrangement? And what's your understanding of how much you would get if you were to have a successful FOS claim, Financial Ombudsman Service claim?
Well, the scheme of arrangement, I mean, obviously the number that's been bandied around a lot is the 77 pence in the pound, which is a very misleading number, because the scheme of arrangement basically compensates to a degree for losses during a very specific period of time. It doesn't compensate fully for going back to where things started to go wrong with Woodford, and basically link kind of took their eye off the ball in terms of keeping their eye on what Woodford Asset Management were doing. And so I'm very aggrieved that the scheme of arrangements is being promoted as a scheme that compensates to the degree they say it does. It doesn't, and it doesn't compensate anywhere near the losses that I've incurred as a result of the kind of the failures by Link as ACD to do their job properly, which go back to 2016. They don't go back to, what was it, 6 months before fund suspension. They go back a lot further than that, and clearly they just were not keeping Neil Woodford and the company in check.
Thank you. And in terms of what would happen if there was a successful FOS claim, without mentioning any numbers, Martin, there's no need for that, but does the 85k limit apply? Are you above or below that?
I would be around that number, depending on how you calculate the losses. So the kind of losses that I have incurred, if I were to recover everything that I thought could be attributed to Link's failure, in fact, I probably would be that would come slightly short of what I lost. Yeah. But obviously that's a bit of a leap in the dark in terms of if a false claim was initiated, where they would eventually land in terms of what the losses they could attribute to Link's failures here. But it would certainly be a lot more than what the scheme of arrangement allows for. The scheme of arrangement just seems to have been structured to ensure that Link doesn't go insolvent. They put this free cash that they've got into compensation, but seems to be very structured around divvying out that cash to the creditors, and running away, hoping that people don't realise they've been had, and that it doesn't really anywhere near compensate them for the losses. So it seems to be a stitch up, basically, to help protect embarrassment to the FCA and to help stop Link becoming insolvent, which obviously we pursued through the Financial Ombudsman Service, and eventually had to go to the FCS if we had to, because to the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, because Link had become insolvent. We would potentially be able to recover a lot more than that.
Thank you. And if you believe that you would get more through a successful Financial Ombudsman Service claim than you would from a scheme of arrangement, do you have a rough feel for what that kind of multiple might be, or how much more you get through the FOS than through the scheme?
Oh, an order of magnitude more, plus more. I'm going to get, can't remember what the numbers are. I was looking at them earlier on today. A few £1,000s from this scheme, £5,000 or something. It could easily be 10 times or more than that. I would recover. In fact, I would hope I would potentially recover twice that, because that's the losses I incurred. So yeah, it's a significant difference.
Thank you. Overall, how has the Woodford scandal impacted you?
Well, it's made a big hole in funds that were there to make provision for me and my wife's retirement. So it's money that won't be there now. So it's a hole in our retirement funds. Now I had diversified investments. I didn't put everything in this boat. I know some people did. I didn't put everything in this one. So I've still got investments elsewhere that haven't performed this way, but it is wrong that I should have to incur this or take the hit on this because of other people's failings.
Thank you. What do you think about the scheme of arrangements? What do you think about the voting process? What do you think about the vote outcome? And anything about those points?
Well, I think I pretty much said what I think about the scheme arrangement. It's wrong. But by basically foisting it on the creditors and then taking away their rights to pursue any other claims, either against Link or arguably against anyone else that might have had a hand in this whole failure, is just wrong, because we're being sold something that doesn't even remotely compensate us. What was the other half to that question?
Yeah, about the voting, the process, the
The
outcome.
voting.
On that.
Okay, yeah, the voting was dreadful. I mean, I've worked all my career in the technology industry, so I'm kind of fairly tech savvy. And even I found it clunky. You kind of, when you went in and registered to vote online and went through the questions, even I made a mistake the first time round and put myself down as a direct investor because I thought I was a direct investor, even though it was through a fund platform. And it was only then I kind of realized, thinking about it later, oh no, I selected the wrong box. It was just very, very clunky. There were errors on the screens. You know, when I went in at a subsequent time to try and change things, a message came up. Basically, if I'd taken literally, I would have taken to assume that I actually couldn't change anything. Because they had the wrong date on it. So it was clunky. I can imagine a lot of people giving up on it. There was no positive feedback that the vote you'd cast, the paperwork you'd submitted with had been accepted. So I mean, they could have quite possibly I think, what was it, Price Waterhouse, who were managing it, could quite possibly have just rejected my vote and I wouldn't know anything about it. You know, if I ticked the wrong box, or, you know, the paperwork I'd submitted wasn't what they were looking for. So it just really didn't instill any confidence, and as I say, I can understand a lot of people just going, this is too hard.
And your final question, Martin, anything else you'd like to share with us before we bring this conversation to a close?
No, I think that's pretty much covered it.
Very good. Thank you, sir, for your time today. Much appreciated, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you.